Okay, so it's hurricane season. Obviously, our prayers need to be with the people of Florida right now. It's not just North Carolina and Tennessee and Georgia and Virginia still recovering from Helene. Now, as you're watching me, Milton has begun its destruction in Florida. What people need right now is prayer. They need your support. In the wake of Milton, they may need help from you, help from me in whatever way we can deliver help. Maybe it's a food, or maybe it's baby formula. Maybe if you have the time, maybe it's you, me going physically over there. I don't know, but what they need is our prayer. What they need is our support. But it's important, I think, just because it's hurricane season and because we're seeing so much of this now, it's important to have another talk just to open up the show. We'll get into so many other things in this show about how the communist sees tragedy, how he sees things, and why do they treat it so differently. Like right now, I'll be honest with you, it's what time is it right now? It's 9:05 Eastern time, something like that. I don't know, the Eastern time zone's an anomaly to me, but it's right around that time. And as I'm doing the show, we're here on the first doing the show, I'm thinking about those people in Florida, what they're going through. Hopefully physically safe. Are they watching everything lost? The communists, guys like Bill Nye, doesn't occur to him at all.
The other side, as we often call it, has no plans to address climate change, no plans for long-term dealing with these sorts of problems. If you have young voters out there, encourage them to vote. People say, what can I do about climate change? If we were talking about it, associating it with big storms like this, that would be really good. But the main thing is vote. Thank you.
And Bill, very quickly, how much of an impact do you see climate change playing in all of these explanations that you've given us? How much do you see climate change as being a part of that?
Oh, it's no question, everybody.
No question. They can't help themselves. Why do they do this? Just a reminder, there's no such thing as human tragedy to an anti-human. They do this, they can do this, their conscience gives them permission to do this because they're anti-humans. They're the enemies of humanity. No decent human being would do what they do, but communists will. Is there a mosquito tragedy for you? Is that something that's even possible? If I told you 1,000 mosquitoes were just slaughtered in front of your house, would your heart be tugging? Would you be crying, the mosquitoes? No, of course. Why not? Because you're an anti-mosquito person. You hate mosquitoes. We all do. I hate mosquitoes. If you told me 1,000 of them died, I'd say, wow, how do we up those numbers? It's hard to accept, but that is exactly how the communist views humanity. And that's why he can take advantage of human tragedy, because it's not a tragedy to him. It's an opportunity. Now, speaking of an opportunity, Kamala Harris, this gets interesting. We'll try to do this quickly. Kamala Harris tried to politicize this whole thing.
President, Governor DeSantis, NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
Moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship.
So Dome's trying to make it about Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, I'm not going to play it for you. We've already played it for you before, stood up and said, that's crazy. She's politicizing it. But that's not the interesting thing about this. You already know all that and the why. The interesting thing was Kamala Harris is going with a consistent message that Republicans are evil and they're politicizing it and they're doing the wrong thing. So who would step up and defend Republicans? Joe Biden did?
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, I said, no, you're doing a great job.
Doing a great job. Kamala Harris is trying to take advantage. Why is Joe Biden pouring cold water on her efforts? Well, that leads me to our next topic, which we're going to get into in more depth with Jack Posobiec. Remember what John Phillips came on the show yesterday and discussed when it comes to Kamala and Joe?
He was not supposed to endorse Kamala. He was supposed to endorse an open Democratic convention where then the power brokers could pick whoever it is that they determine was the most electable. If you go back to that day that he got out of the race, it was two statements that were put together kind of hastily, including one that Nancy Pelosi said she didn't think he even wrote himself. He got out of the race, and then like a short period of time later, he came out and said, and I endorse Kamala. Well, because of the calendar, that took an open convention off the table, and they were stuck with her. In many ways, I think Kamala is Joe's revenge for doing what they did to him. And who knows, maybe he'll end up getting the last laugh after all.
Have you thought about that since John said it? A lot of people have been talking about it. Jack Posobiec is going to join us here in a couple minutes to talk about it. But I just want to brew on that with you for just a brief moment when you think about this. Remember when Joe Biden, remember when we first heard he wasn't running again? You remember, it was a letter. It was days until we actually heard from Joe Biden. A letter got published, and it wasn't even just like they had typed it on social media. Someone printed it out on a piece of paper, printed it, took a picture of the letter, and put it up on social media. And it was Joe Biden in the letter. In fact, Joe Biden even mentions Kamala Harris by name in the letter. Remember that? And do you remember the chief architect of Joe Biden getting knifed out of the White House? You remember who the chief architect of that was? It was Nancy Pelosi. She's been asked about it several times. It's the worst kept secret in Washington, D.C. Nancy Pelosi, there were many people involved, but she was the tip of the spear, if you will, Grandma Vodka was, in getting Joe Biden out. Now back to the letter. Do you remember when Nancy Pelosi went on the news and talked about the letter? And when she said, it was almost odd when she went on the news and said it. She went on the news and said, well, the letter, I don't know, it didn't even sound like Joe Biden. She was dumping all over the letter that was published. This really leads to an interesting conversation and an observation when you consider the things Pelosi said, when you consider how disastrous Kamala Harris has been. Joe Biden is running to the press to compliment Ron DeSantis. Remember when Kamala Harris gave this speech the other day, trying to look presidential after Helene? Joe Biden, while she was speaking, stomped all over it and gave an impromptu press conference. Is Joe Biden trying to lose the election for Democrats? It's not a conversation I honestly ever really considered with any level of seriousness because, as you know, the system speaks with one voice at all times. The system speaks with one voice. It swims in the same direction. It does. That's what it does. Did they knife out Joe Biden and not take into account his ability to drop a poison pill in the race to punish everybody? That may make you uncomfortable, but I might be right. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.